Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Update. Am I wrong for refusing to pay for college for a child I have no legal obligation to anymore? Original post. For the sake of length, I'll try to stick to the facts and keep it brief. I legally have 3 children with my ex, 51, Adam, 23 male, Chris, 21 male, and Sophie, 18 female. Biologically, the first 2 children are mine, and youngest is the result of my wife's infidelity. I discovered this the day when Sophie was 2 years old and we had to rush Sophie to the emergency room. I filed for divorce 2 months later. I got 50-50 custody of my own children, but since Sophie was legally mine, I had to pay child support for her and was very bitter and resentful about it. I tried to fight it at first, but in the end, decided to suck it up to save myself the stress. But I made it very clear to my ex that outside of child support, I would take no other responsibility for the girl and would shut down any attempts at being her father. But I would make the effort to still be polite to Sophie. After some time, I learned to trust again and remarried a wonderful woman who made it very clear that she and her daughter were a package deal. I accepted this and did everything I could to try and be there for my stepdaughter Katie, 17 female. Aside from the typical ups and downs, I would say I managed to make a great family life for myself. We would have family nights, I attended most after-school events, took my family on fun vacations and put my sons through school and paid for their apartments and cars. They're on their own for gas money. Chris is expected to graduate this coming summer, and I made a silly post on social media about how relieved I was going to be that I only had one more kid to put through school left. A couple of days later, I got a message from my ex asking me to pay for Sophie's college expenses on my own, since the pandemic has made money tight. I asked her what she meant and referred to my post, and I reminded her that my legal obligation to Sophie ended the day she turned 18 and that I was talking about Katie. My ex was furious, demanded to know why I was willing to pay for Katie and not Sophie, since neither of them are related to me. I countered by saying that I knew upfront Katie wasn't my biological child and agreed to care for her instead of being conned into doing it like I was for Sophie. After that, I got a call from Sophie asking what she did to make me hate her so much and to leave her feeling so excluded. I told her softly that I don't hate her and that nothing about this situation was her fault, but the simple truth is that it wasn't personal, I'm just not her father. Since then, my sons have told me that Sophie was becoming really depressed. My ex is blaming me, but I don't see what I have to do with it. Am I wrong? Edit, just to be clear because I keep seeing the same questions. 1. The kids know why I divorced their mother. 2. My ex claims that Sophie was the result of a one-night stand and doesn't know who her father is, which is one of the reasons why I was kept on the hook for child support. 3. After I learned the truth, I was very angry and didn't think I could handle raising a child that I was tricked into caring for, so I decided to keep my distance. 4. Just because Sophie wasn't mine and I treated as such doesn't mean that I was horrible to the girl. I also made sure that my children knew that what happened between their mother and me was not Sophie's fault, and they should never be mean to her. Info: did Sophie know you aren't her father? Yes. If Sophie has never had a relationship with you, then it's likely they just see you as a cash cow and are unhappy that she's turned 18 and the money is stopping. Everyone sucks here except Sophie. I feel bad for her. She didn't lie to you about not being your child, your ex-wife did. You said you countered the agreement about paying for Sophie's college and paying for your stepdaughters because you knew your stepdaughters wasn't yours and you accepted that responsibility. You accepted responsibility for Sophie in the eyes of the courts. You are taking your betrayal out on Sophie. You were horrible to the girl growing up. You made sure to make it well known that she was the result of an affair, and you could only be polite to her. You lost your daughter 16 years ago. Are you prepared to lose your sons now? Check your divorce papers. You might be required to pay for Sophie's college according to the terms of your divorce. Also, your income will be included if Sophie goes for a student loan, grant, or scholarship, meaning that you could be potentially stopping her for getting her education because your income is too high. You are going to fill out paperwork so she can get herself through college. No, I checked and my lawyer double-checked. I'm under no legal obligation to pay for Sophie's college because a percentage of the child support was supposed to be saved for college, but it was completely at her mother's discretion. I didn't think about how my income could affect Sophie's ability to get a loan. I'll look into it. Nope, for federal student loans, FAFSA, a student with separated or divorced parents only has to report the income of one parent. Sophie can use her mother's income on her FAFSA application and presumably get decent student loans, possibly grant money depending on how much her mom makes. Because I had 50-50 custody, I didn't have to pay child support for the boys. Also, my ex didn't contribute to our son's college in any way. I think that's why she tried to convince herself into thinking that I would pay for Sophie too. Hold up, she had a one-night stand but doesn't know who the father is. How many one-night stands did she have to have lost track of the father? My ex claims it was just the one-time thing, and she did it for the thrill of being with a random stranger she met at a bar. Now for the first update. Thank you to everyone for their kind words of support. A lot of you have suggested therapy, and for the longest time I never felt like I needed it. But after everything new that's happened, I've decided that talking to a professional won't hurt. I thought I buried my anger and hurt toward my ex years ago, but now new information has been revealed that's just making me angry all over again. Not too long after my initial fight with my ex, she and Sophie got into a fight that ended up so bad that Sophie was kicked out of the home. Sophie called her brothers and they in turn called me, and she is currently staying with my wife, Katie, and I. Apparently, in spite of my efforts to maintain a boundary, my ex kept telling Sophie that if she was well behaved and did good in school, that I would think of her as a daughter again. It was my ex's way of getting Sophie to be obedient. When I made my post, Sophie thought that I was finally giving her the validation that my ex had always promised. And when I didn't, it was just chaos. Sophie called my ex horrible names and demanded to know who her bio dad is. My ex refused and told her if she was going to be disrespectful, she had to live elsewhere. Originally, some of you suggested that in spite of Sophie's blood type she could still be my daughter, and that was really starting to get to me. Now that Sophie was staying with me, I took some of her DNA and sent it off for testing and couldn't believe the results, that I sent it again for a second time. To my shock, Sophie and I are indeed related. She's just not my daughter. Like I said, the bad feelings are all starting to come back to me again, but this new information is just putting me in a bad place again. I don't even know how or when to break the news to Sophie or how to even confront my ex about any of this. I feel like such a fool. I'm not saying that this is a good idea, a moral idea, or an ethical idea, but I wonder. If it came out that the wife was having an affair with a relative of OP, and that the relative had reason to know that they were the father, but kept quiet, could OP theoretically sue the bio father to be reimbursed for child support, civilly, not in criminal court? Like, if it was a stranger, there would be no expectation that the bio dad would know that they were the father, but if it's someone close to OP, or it's a deadbeat relative of his without money, I would have checked into reimbursement and give the money to Sophie for college. I don't think I've ever wanted an update so badly before. I think she's his niece and the wife cheated on him with his brother. That's what it sounds like. Brother or cousin, or worse, dad. To my shock, Sophie and I are indeed related, she's just not my daughter. So it wasn't a one-night stand, just someone in OP's family. WTF. So, is he an uncle, sibling, cousin? This makes the mother even worse. She kicked her out of her house, and she knew who the real father was all along, not letting the kid have a father. I'm glad OP divorced and did not stay. That woman is horrible. Last update. Did a second DNA test, and whoever he is genetically my cousin. Now for the last story. My 44 male wife, 41 female, lied about the paternity of our daughter. Just a roller coaster of emotions right now, and I do not know where to start. For the past 8 years, I had believed my 8-year-old daughter was mine biologically. Now my entire world is crashing down because 2 tests confirm that she is not mine. My wife and I have been married for 7 years, and she got pregnant when we were engaged. I was so madly in love with her, and when she told me she was pregnant, I never in a million years would have thought to question the paternity of the child. Of course it was mine, and I was going to marry this woman and raise however many kids we had together, in the sort of happy family that neither my wife nor I had growing up. However, after our daughter was born, it seemed like nothing about our lives were ever good enough. She quit her job in public relations without telling me, bounced around between various part-time roles, most of which she ended up having some sort of drama in, and stormed out of. Now she is running a business where she buys discount stuff and attempts to sell them for a higher price online, which brings in at most a few hundred each month. Around year 5 of our marriage, she went from never wanting intimacy to needling me about the possibility of an open marriage. I really felt uncomfortable with how she didn't seem to care about any ground rules and said I could sleep with whoever I wanted as long as I never brought them to our house and never spent any money on them beyond paying for dinner. She later backtracked and said that it was just her late 30s, early 40s hormones making her go crazy. However, the subsequent borderline dead bedroom and her actions made me constantly suspicious that something was going on. In these past few months, things got really bad really quickly. I came home one day to find her in our bed crying. She said that she was just very emotional. Thus began a 2-month period where I took on all the childcare so that my wife could go see a therapist and just be by herself as she requested. Her therapist put her on antidepressants, but she ended up self-medicating with alcohol, and we had fights because I hated smoking and she picked up her old smoking habit from her 20s. Then one night I seemed to trigger a massive avalanche of rage from her when I asked her if she could please engage more with our daughter when she was talking about her day. She flipped out and started screaming about how much she regrets this life and regrets marrying me, that I annoy her more than she can put into words. She then said, "There is someone else. I know you already suspected, so good job." I felt like the wind was being knocked out of me. She then burst into tears and said she was dying from a broken heart and all doctors will do is put her on antidepressants. That the world never gives her solutions, allows her an ending of her choosing in this life. She then says to me that my daughter isn't mine. She is her ex's and that she has the paternity test to prove it. I knew immediately which ex she was talking about. It was her ex-42 male from 13 years ago, who was in an on-again off-again relationship with somebody. He kept dumping her when he and his girlfriend became on again. He has now been married for 2 years to a 26-year-old, but obviously his ways of never being able to decide between women has never stopped. I am obviously having my world crumble before my eyes, so we start the worst argument of our marriage. I for several minutes forgot that our daughter could easily walk in on the both of us, even though she was thankfully outside and occupied at the time. My wife at this point is already pretty drunk and angrily finishes up the rest of her bottle. She says that she loves him, but she is lower than trash to him. She showed me the paternity test results on her phone that she and him both saw, and afterwards he said she's been playing him the whole time and ghosted her. She says she hates him for being such a cruel human and that she just wanted to curl up and disappear, but she cannot stand me either. Not only was she cheating on me with him while we were dating, but after he started making business trips back to the area 2 years ago, they reconnected, and that was the reason she asked for an open marriage. I told her that I put up with all her problems. I told myself that she was just trying to get over the trauma from a tough childhood, or that it was her professional struggles giving her depression, but she has been spitefully betraying me. I told her that I was done. I ended up leaving the house and going to a motel and just staring at the ceiling for like an entire day. I even forgot to call in sick for work, and that never happens, and a friend at work called to check on me. After I told him what happened, he told me I needed to clear my head enough to get ahead of this situation and all the drama ahead. I ended up going to see a lawyer. It was then my wife started bombarding my messages with texts, saying she is sorry, that she is selfish, but she couldn't help who she fell in love with. She asked me to come home and to still love our daughter. I replied I did love our daughter and can wake up every morning and call her my daughter, but that I could no longer call her my wife. She told me that she was going to check herself into a psych hospital if I filed for divorce right now and asked for one last chance. I told her that if she wanted to go to a hospital because she was feeling so many emotions, I support her, but she cannot emotionally blackmail me with this. She then tells me she dropped our daughter off with her sister, and I immediately feel guilty about leaving our daughter like this. I end up heading to our house and find out she is gone. I go to pick up my daughter from her aunt's house to bring her back home, while people try to locate my wife. Hours go by where there is no answer from her, and she seems to have turned her phone off. I cannot help it. I worry, and a part of me that cares for her started giving the rest of me so much agony. Finally, I find out bystanders witnessed her drinking and acting erratically in public. Police were called and she started saying that I was going to divorce her and her family was gone now. She told police she was on antidepressants and suffered from anxiety. The police decide to take her to the hospital and she is now in the psych ward. Hearing her voice on the phone there that she called me with made my heart break. After the phone call, where she sounded so helpless and sad, I broke down and cried. I only stopped because I knew my daughter could hear. The next morning, I realized that I needed to give my daughter some stability. However, I also knew I had to do this, and I ended up collecting the materials I needed for another DNA test, because I needed to know for sure that she was biologically not mine. I simply didn't trust anything that came from my wife, and kept thinking she had another motive or something for saying my daughter wasn't mine. Today I got the results of the test, and my daughter indeed isn't mine. I can no longer cling on to that remaining shred of denial, and now I'm at a loss. The place my wife is in allows 2-hour visits, and I went to see her. She looked again so helpless and lost. Part of her treatment is to make amends, and I can't help but be afraid of her reaction if I really go through with filing for divorce. I know that she will be released, and probably sooner than later, and her demons will still be there. What do I do? I had a plan carved out, but that was done during the anger phase of me finding out. I combed through her electronic records and found out the contact information for her affair partner. I feel that I need to have a conversation with him since paternity is a legal matter. I also do not know how much I should tell my daughter about this whole thing. I've only told her that her mom is sick and is getting better with help. Now for the top advice. Tell her your marriage is over. She has support where she is. They will make sure she is okay. As far as your daughter goes, you should discuss that with an attorney because legally you are the dad. Good luck to all three of you. He is not only legally her dad, he is her dad in every way that counts. Daddying is made up of changing diapers, getting up for night feedings, playing and bonding with your child, and raising them, not busting a nut and supplying a sperm. OP, your marriage is over. Your soon-to-be ex has made your life hell for years now and just used you for stability because the other guy rejects her. Don't allow this to continue. Talk to your lawyer if there is any way to get full custody of your daughter, since the mother is completely unstable and doesn't even have a job or a home, and if there is a way you can make the sperm donor pay child support. The dad is a human too. His emotions and feelings are valid. He's allowed to be conflicted or not be a dad anymore. One of my coworkers was a dad to a child which wasn't his. He paid for the child because legally he had to. But his own mental health was worth more to him than raising the child, and he decided for his own mental health that he would not raise the child anymore but support it, because seeing her would remind him of the wife's affair every time. And that's okay. Society shouldn't force men to be fathers to children that aren't theirs, yet here we are. Financially, guys are responsible for children that aren't theirs in many cases. That's the sad reality for men, which is why I encourage my son to take birth control into his own hands and be responsible for his own actions. The courts have no issue at all with making a man pay for a kid that isn't even his. And not even punishing a woman for lying about it. Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. I, 50 female, told my daughter, 24 female, that I won't attend her wedding if her biological father is there. But now she says that I'm being stuck in the past. Original post. I would appreciate some advice on the current situation I find myself in, and I am hoping an outsider's viewpoint can offer me some clarity. For some context, about 24 years ago, I was violated by a close friend of mine and got pregnant by the encounter. I was inconsolable for months after the event. To make matters worse, I found out I was pregnant at about 20 weeks, and where I lived at the time, it was illegal to terminate after the first trimester. My husband had really been my rock and my support during that time, and I do not know how I would have ended up if not for him. He said that I could put it up for adoption, or I could keep the child and he would raise it like our other children. I decided to not give it up for adoption, but raising the kid was hard. I am half Polish and half German and he is half German and half Russian. We both have pale skin, light hair and blue eyes, as well as being fairly tall. I'm about 178 centimeters or around 5 feet 10, and he is 191 centimeters or about 6 feet 3. However, our daughter Luna is about 160 centimeters or 5 feet 3, has dark hair and a brown complexion like her biological father. I often heard snide remarks about me being an unfaithful wife because it was obvious that she was not my husband's child. It was especially hard for me when Luna was young because she looked so much like her dad. My husband took care of my daughter most of the time, since I had bad flashbacks whenever I saw her face from when I was violated. As she grew up, it died down a bit, but I would still get these horrible panic attacks when I saw her wearing boys' clothes and short hair. Since I was prone to having panic attacks, Luna ended up being closer to my husband than she was to me. Also, she often ended up getting a little more than her siblings from my husband, as some sort of compensation because of me. We never told her that she was the product of a crime, because I was too ashamed, and my husband did not want her feeling different from her siblings. I often told her that me and her biological father got into an altercation, and never spoke to one another ever again. About 2 years ago, she got one of those DNA test items, and found out she had a relative in the system. Said relative got Luna in touch with her bio dad, and they started talking despite my protests. He apparently wanted to speak to me about something he wanted to tell me, so Luna attempted to persuade me to speak with him. I made her aware that me and her father shouldn't ever be in the same room together. Now, Luna is getting married to a lovely young man. Some of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, so she is able to have a decent-sized wedding. The original plan was to have my husband walk her down the aisle, but he had gotten into a bad accident leaving him in a wheelchair until his legs are strong enough to support his weight again. However, this is not her idea of a picture-perfect wedding day, so she invited her biological father to have the honor of being the bride's father. Her wedding invitation not only invited my offender, but she totally disrespected the man who raised her. Although I or a bridesmaid could have pushed him down the aisle, she thinks it would not fit the vibe of the wedding. My husband looked so shocked and upset that she would even think of this, but I was furious. I have a visceral hate for that man, and I let her know that I would not be anywhere near him. She told me that this is what she wants, and there's no changing her mind, so I told her I will not be attending if he's there. She got upset and told me that I shouldn't hang on to the past, but I laid it into her that she doesn't know what happened between me and her biological father, so she shouldn't stick her nose where it doesn't belong. Though I feel terrible about what I said and how I said it, and I can't be blamed for her being born or not knowing what happened since I never told her, I still feel as though my wishes should be respected if I say I don't want to be in the same room as someone. I'm now okay with her contacting her father, I just do not want anything to do with him. Also, it's rude to replace your father with another man who you've barely known for 2 years because of something he couldn't control. Can anyone offer me a perspective that I am not catching? Has anyone ever dealt with this? And if so, how? Now for the top advice before reading the update. You need to tell her how she was conceived. You did her a disservice by concealing that from her and allowing her to have a relationship with an offender. Now that criminal has obviously fed her a narrative that paints him in a convenient light. Who knows what else that man could do? Tell her, immediately. She should know that the picture-perfect wedding she wants will forever be marred by having a criminal there. If after telling her she sticks to her guns, let her know you won't have a relationship with someone who so easily sides with someone like that. I was conceived from my father forcing my mother. I would never expect my mother to see my father at all. You need to tell her. It's her business as well as yours. Also, I didn't discover the truth of my conception until I was roughly your daughter's age. It took some processing, but I've moved on. It's part of my story as it's part of your daughter's. She's a grown 24-year-old. There is no reason for her to not know her bio dad did that to you. This, you've got to tell her. I don't know if it will mend anything, since she's being a prick to the father who raised her for the sake of a wedding. But still, she needs to know, because right now, you're just a woman who didn't get over a fight that happened 24 years ago. Plus, she'll end up knowing about it at some point, and it's going to be way worse than just telling her yourself. I think you need to tell her what happened. Right now, bio dad could be telling her lies and is controlling the narrative around her conception. If she knows what happened, she could make a more informed decision about continuing a relationship, but also then understand why you won't attend the wedding if he's in attendance. I would be very worried right now that the bio father has already spun a false and manipulative narrative about what happened. I would brace myself for the daughter reacting negatively, and even accusing the mother of lying to break up the relationship with the bio father just to be petty, etc. Now for the first update. Before I get started on the update, I have a few things I want to address. A lot of people have questioned me on why I did not tell my daughter that she was a product of a crime. The only answer is that I was ashamed of myself. For some context, before I got married to my husband, I actually was very close friends with my attacker. We grew up together in a small community and our families were close. Our parents even wanted us to get together. He was always interested in me, but I didn't give him a chance until university. I broke it off with him and started dating my husband, but I never cut him off because we were very close. He invited me over to drink. This was normal for us, and when I started getting a bit tipsy, he forced himself on me. I was very traumatized by the situation and tried to get him jailed, but I couldn't. He had a very good reputation, so everyone believed him, even my own mother, when he said I willingly came over and did it with him. I eventually stopped pursuing because of the social pressure, which only got worse when I found out I was pregnant. I eventually left that place with my husband and kids to live somewhere else. After I gave birth, my husband suggested therapy, but I was scared of being judged again, so I decided to bury it and try to forget about it. I just realized now that it was the worst way to go about this, but it's the only way I knew how to honestly. On to the update. After reading all the advice I'd gotten, I decided that I should stop running away and tell her everything. I called her to come over and she did. I first apologized for yelling at her for her suggestion, because in her mind, it was an innocent suggestion. I told her that I wasn't angry at her, but how fast she was willing to replace her father because he was in a wheelchair, and that anger was compounded because she brought up her genetic father. I apologized again for acting childish and not like an adult. She asked me why I am so against her genetic father being in the same vicinity as I am, and I just told her everything from our initial friendship to her forced conception. She didn't believe me, like some of you guys predicted. But I can get a copy of the records of the court case and offered them to her if she needed a look. She looked stunned, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't. I apologized for keeping all this from her because I didn't know how to bring it up. She told me she didn't believe me and would confirm with her genetic father, so I told her to take the time she needed to process all this. Later that day, she came again, crying and apologizing for not believing me. I held her and cried and apologized too. It was kind of therapeutic. We had a long chat and I did feel closer to her. When we were done, she said she wanted to take me out to a surprise to help me feel better in a couple of days, which I happily agreed to. I went to see her yesterday in this little restaurant, with a patio that had a private pay-for-use area for a maximum of 4 people due to COVID. As she ran up to me and gave me a hug, she led me to the patio, where her biological father stood. She told me he was here to apologize and start my healing journey. I just wanted to leave, but he grabbed my hand, and all those memories I tried to repress just came back out. I started having a panic attack and lost balance, to which he tried to help me keep my balance, which worsened everything. I honestly don't remember how I left, but I ended up in my car just sobbing. I called my elder son to pick me up because I was not fit to drive at that moment. Today, my daughter called me upset that I ruined her surprise, but I was extremely upset with her. I asked her why she did that, when she knows everything that happened between me and him. And she tried to use the excuse of my healing journey, but I wasn't having it. She admitted that she wanted me to get used to him because he's going to be walking her down the aisle along with my husband and doing the daddy-daughter dance. I told her that while I loved her and respect her decision to be with him, I am not willing to be anywhere he is. She started complaining about how she wants all her family to be there and I'm still not forgiving, but I hung up the phone. My husband is aware of everything and stands by me of not going to her wedding, but I don't want this. If my other children were to know, they would stand by me and tell the rest of their extended family, which is going to lead to my daughter getting disowned by the family. There is no need to give me advice on this because I will be seeking professional aid. Anyways, one good thing to come out of this is that I'm finally confident enough to seek therapy. Thank you for listening to my venting and for commenting on my last post. Happy holidays. I hope you enjoy it with those who you love. Now for more advice before reading the update. What the fuck? Honestly, same. Daughter checked all requisites of villainy. Never met the daughter, but her entire existence infuriates me right now. It baffles me that, in some twisted way, she excused, condoned, accepted, doesn't care, that the assault happened. Can't even find the right word. But it was selfish of her to ambush you with that horrible person. Sending virtual boosters and support to OP after being hit with a hurricane of an event. This is a lot for you to deal with. Virtual hugs from an internet stranger. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for all of this. Please don't apologize, it isn't your fault. I'm looking into professional assistance at least. My heart goes out to you. Question if I may, is your husband going to the wedding? No, my husband is very angry with her at the moment. Despite his injury, he's been constantly checking on me to see if I'm alright. I honestly love that man, and I seriously doubt that I would be alive if it weren't for him. I'm sorry, but your daughter is freaking evil. I would 100% make it known exactly why I wasn't at her wedding, and how she duped you into facing your offender again against your will. If she maintains contact with him, as much as it hurts, I would just write her off. Go as low contact as you can. Especially as in the last post. The stepdad was a good dad by all accounts, so there's no reason for her to both abandon him and go all in on bio dad. I am conflicted on this. Yes, what she did hurt me, but if I had told her the truth before she got into contact with her biological father, I doubt any of this would happen. I sort of brought it on myself because I just ignored my problems rather than confronting them. I still want to attend her wedding because I love her dearly, but I don't know if that's possible at this point. Now for the final update. Hello everyone, it has been a while since I last posted on this website. I have a few new updates for everyone that has been asking me. I apologize for not getting to everyone in my direct messages, but I really appreciate everyone sending me support through those tough times. I would like to share some good news before going on about what happened with my daughter. My husband is able to walk again. Albeit with a cane, but it is progress. We have been going to physical therapy to help strengthen his legs after his accident. It's good to see him happy and walking again. I've also been to therapy and met this wonderful and sweet therapist. My therapist is so patient and kind. Since my husband and I started together a few weeks ago, she has been extremely helpful. Bless her soul and all those who recommended therapy. I would have missed out on such an experience, so my thanks go out to all of you. Like most of you advised, my therapist also advised me to tell my other children about what went on between my youngest. For reference, I have 3 other children, 30 male, 27 female, and 27 male. My eldest boy is the only one that had a slight idea of what happened, but the other 2 were left unaware. I was quite scared and anxious to tell them what happened, especially because my mother and other family members initially reacted negatively. I invited them over around 2 weeks ago for a family dinner and told them everything that happened, from the conception of my youngest to what happened recently. They were all silent and stared at me, so I became a little nervous. Until my daughter started crying. It was so upsetting for her, and my 2 sons were angry at my youngest and her father. They asked why I didn't tell them earlier, and I told them I was just scared of how they could have reacted. My husband took them out of the dining room to talk, while my eldest daughter just cried together. When my boys and husband came back, they apologized for leaving early and left. My eldest daughter wanted to spend the night with me, but early in the morning, she left with her brothers to do whatever. I didn't hear anything from them until last Wednesday. I was on Facebook when I saw my elder daughter's post calling out my younger daughter for not only ignoring the man who raised her, but siding with her mother's attacker and re-traumatizing her. My boys made similar posts as well, dragging her name through the mud. I had so many direct messages, but I didn't want anything to do with them, so I deleted the app off my phone. Since I don't like people knowing about my personal life, I asked my kids to take down the post. They said they did, but I haven't re-downloaded the app to find out. My daughter's fiance came to my house with his mother to apologize. He told me he broke off the engagement because he couldn't be with someone who treated their parents like that. His mother let me know how disgusted she was with my daughter's actions, and that someone like that would never be a part of her family. I was honestly stunned by all the support I have received. It's one thing to receive support online, but receiving support in real life was surreal for me. I am a bit disappointed because I wanted my daughter's former fiance to join the family, as he is a lovely and sweet boy, but he has boundaries in a relationship that my daughter unfortunately crossed. As for my youngest, she is furious with me. She sent me a nasty voicemail saying that I ruined her life. Her friends and fiance basically cut her off. Needless to say, I felt terribly sorry because I had attempted to avoid this situation at all costs. I went through what she is experiencing, and I know exactly what it feels like. I told my therapist about this, and she told me that the difference is that, while I was the victim, my daughter brought it on herself. My therapist is probably right, but I can't stop this feeling of dread. I tried to call my daughter, but once I heard her father on the line, I hung up. He took it upon himself to let me know that my daughter is depressed because of my actions. I feel terrible for treating my daughter like this. My husband says that I should focus on myself, and I'm trying to, but I just can't stop worrying. I don't think that my daughter is safe when she's with her biological father. This is all that's going on in my life right now, for all those asking. Thanks for listening to me, and thanks for the advice again. I really appreciate everything. Well, this ended the only way it could. Halfway through part 3, when the sons apologized and left early, I thought the next step would be a murder. Glad it only ended with a permanent estrangement. What the hell is wrong with that child? The final straw was when she didn't ask the parent who raised her to walk with her because he was in a wheelchair long before the truly repugnant garbage. I hope she gets a freaking clue about how to treat people. She had to confirm the crime committed on her mom by her genetic father. How messed up is that? I cannot even fathom some of these recent Reddit posts where people are putting their biological, genetic crappy parents above their adoptive ones. My first thought too, what the heck did she think an actual offender was going to say about the crime? You need to work on reframing your language around this. Your daughter's life wasn't ruined due to your actions. She isn't depressed due to your actions. Your daughter feels all of this due to her actions, callous nature, and decision-making. Hers alone. Work on reminding yourself this over and over. She made her choice. No one with a moral compass would have been okay with this choice. She just thought she could make this okay. Frankly, if it were me, I would also never speak to her again if I were your daughter's friend. My guess is everyone had the same reaction. Remind yourself, the fallout is due to daughter's actions. That's what I've been told, but this wouldn't have happened if I just let her know earlier. I could have prevented all this if I was firmer and didn't let myself get pressured into keeping her when she could have had the chance at a better life with an adoptive family. I just have a lot of regrets in regard to this entire situation because it wasn't her fault. In hindsight, I just feel like I could have done more for her and gotten into therapy sooner.